Garrick Howe. I think I just got it. Let me see. Got it. I'm sorry. Let me start again here. Greetings and good afternoon. I'm Garrick Howe. Excited about today's event. Welcome to the ACDA in the Hot Seat, where we're going to talk about the upcoming ACDA conference in Anaheim, California. For those who aren't familiar with our organization, American Commodity Distribution Association is a nonprofit professional trade association devoted to improving the USDA's food distribution program. ACT is comprised of many stakeholders, all working together to strengthen and maintain the integrity of USDA food supply chain. Our mission is to strengthen the impact of domestic USDA foods programs, and our vision is working together to nourish the nation. I would like to take a quick moment to point out the chat feature where you can enter questions or comments, all of which will be monitored by ACTA staff, and they'll let us know toward the end if there's any questions or comments or insights that y'all are looking for that we can help provide some insight and information for you on. Today's event's the first in the series, focusing on the upcoming conference, and we'll have a couple after conference to focus on a follow-up. So not all of these will be on the upcoming because it starts next week. And today I wanted to, before we get too far into the festivities, I wanted to take a moment and introduce our gracious guests who have agreed to take some time out of their afternoon to be with us and have a conversation. Two of my fellow counterparts in other states. I'm in Kentucky. Again, I'm Garrick, and I've been there for long enough, but I wanted to move on and for sure introduce our guests, starting with Randy Jones. He's the Assistant Director of the School Nutrition Team at the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, and Brian Davis, who is the Assistant Director of the Office of Nutrition with Ohio Department of Education. So, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate your time today. Everybody tuning in and watching and listening in, appreciate your time and your point of view. Look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to having a good conversation with you all. I promised Carol that I wouldn't be too silly, so I'll try to hold it together while we're having our conversation. But I'm not going to lie, the first thing in my head was to go get one of those things that Johnny Carson used to wear and hold the letter up to his head so he could have fun that way. But I decided against it. I keep it moderately professional here. But so, let's dive into the topic. Let's dive into the conversation. And gentlemen, I'll just sort of swap off, giving you guys the opportunity to respond first to questions. And I'll just kind of go the flip of the coin here. On my screen, Brian's laid out kind of in the one position. So I'll start with him on this question, and we'll just flop back and forth. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind, as a state agency, from your perspective, why do you attend this conference? What things do you particularly look forward to in attending ACDA's annual conference?
Yeah, thanks, Garrick. Thanks for having me. I would say as a state agency, ACDA might be one of the most, if not the most valuable conferences that I attend on an annual basis. I think the biggest reason for that is the number of different stakeholder groups that it brings together at the annual conference. So the opportunity to have recipient agencies, also known as the schools in most cases, and industry and IT and everybody else, USDA especially, all part of the same conference, having the same conversations, hearing the same information. That networking and the ability to collaborate in person is one of the things that is just most valuable to me.
Absolutely. Randy?
The very same thing. Just that collaboration with all the stakeholders is critical. I think if you're new to USDA foods or even new to procurement, the fact they have these two different tracks, as a new employee here at the state many years ago, that was very valuable to me to start learning about USDA foods. Mm-hmm. And again, they were starting to introduce these procurement lines or procurement tracks. It was really very helpful because there's just so much to learn in USDA foods. This is the first time you can kind of get out there, meet other people who are new. And then like, if we say you've been in it a while, folks like me, we can now go and have conversations that are pretty in-depth and involved. So it's kind of nice. That's one of the nice things. You just don't have an opportunity to do this any other time.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I concur completely. Brett, well, just out of curiosity, Randy, how long have you been working with USDA Foods?
I'm going into my 11th year.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Brian, how long have you been in the old USDA Foods game?
I think primarily working with USDA Foods around 7 years, in the school nutrition area for 11 years.
Awesome. Well, that's wonderful. Yep, I agree, guys. It's having all those stakeholders there. I'm right there with you. And I've had a comment made to me in the past that I seem to be a little more refreshed when I come back from an ACDA conference. And when I get when that was posed to me, that my comment was, I ultimately I think it's because I got to spend quite a few days talking about what we do at a pretty high level. And it's energizing in that way too. So fantastic. As a state agency, if you learned something from attending a previous ACDA conference that's helped you in your state, like my short answer is yes, a lot. But Randy, we'll go to you. We'll throw to you first on that one.
So the question is like, from a state perspective, like what's something I've learned that's been unique by going to this?
Or something that have you taken things from conference back to your state and employed them or utilized them in some way?
Yeah, I don't know if in this example, we didn't really utilize it because we're still looking into doing state processing, but going to ACDA, I was able to kind of interact with lots of my counterparts in other states and see if they do it and get their opinions. And so I can bring that back then to my leadership team and discuss, those type of, questions they have for me, like, why can't we do this? Or what are your thoughts on doing this? I can bring that to like a conference and then talk to others, my counterparts in other states and kind of get that information.
Absolutely. Brian?
Yeah, that's 100% true. Take a lot of things away from ACDA that we then utilize and disseminate in the state. So first of all, it's information, things we can add to trainings, things we can incorporate into our webinars that we host in Ohio, just a lot of things that we can do to spread information out to schools, understanding that there are lots and lots of schools that aren't able to travel at all, especially smaller schools with really, really limited budgets, but being able to be there, take that information and share it with them in a way that's usable and can increase the efficiency and maximize the dollars that they have available for their programs. The other thing that we really take away from it when we attend ACDA is accelerating the learning curve in the USDA Foods program and of the school food supply chain in general. I think most people would tell you that the learning curve is measured in years for these programs, and accelerating that through ACDA is really, really valuable. I don't know how long it would have taken me to feel like I had at least some elementary grasp of what was going on in supply chain if it weren't for being able to ask offhand questions, off the cuff, meet somebody in the hallway and just say, hey, I thought of this when you were presenting. And then that's that information that you can take back, share it with your broader National School Lunch Program team, give them the information that can help them advise schools on making better decisions and increasing the efficiency of their program locally as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I always call back to the, well, if you can't tell, I kind of do some music stuff. And as they say in music industry, and it applies in all professions, in my opinion, but especially this one, we're all just trying to further, feeding those in our states with USDA Foods is good artists borrow and great artists steal, as they say. And those meetings outside the meetings can become, in some ways, more valuable than even sessions at times, not always and all that stuff. But you know, sometimes you really glean some significant insight and information. So that's wonderful. Just as we're going and some of these questions are coming in, they're sending them into me in real time. So I'll pull these as we go and look at some that are pertinent to the topic we're on. We did have a question that came in. Do the state agencies meet separately during the conference with USDA? And the answer to that, in short, is yes, we do. We have a session in which USDA and the state agencies do meet, and we talk about, you know, what's going on, what's coming down. Sometimes what's coming down the pike, what they can, you know, USDA, they will give us all the information they can. There are some things that they have to wait until they get clearance to be able to share with everyone. But overall, yeah, they'll have a meeting with us. We'll have an opportunity to have conversations. Again, that's not including the meeting outside the meeting, those hallway interactions, so to speak. Yeah, we get those opportunities to do that. And
Hey, Garrett, can I add something
yes,
to that?
yes,
Because one other thing, in addition to the state agencies meeting with USDA, is that states will also meet in regions, which can be really valuable for things like splitting trucks or just talking about, you know, there are sometimes going to be regionally specific questions or regionally specific opportunities. And so states meet in a lot of different, you know, combinations throughout the conference. And so that's another piece that's really valuable.
yep. And we usually get a regional, generally it's a regional USDA representative in there, or someone that we may have worked with within our region. You know, they do their best to try and move that. You know, a lot of times in Southeast region room, like Shanique will be there because she came from that area, that part of the country. So, you know, somebody that we've got a rapport with that's from the area. Or if somebody from our regional office is attending, they'll be there. Brian, are you heading up your all's region?
Yeah, that was
meeting?
a little bit of a under the table promo that I was cutting
Yeah.
for the Midwest.
Yeah, it's some inside baseball.
Brian,
Brian and I will be heading our respective region meetings. So we kind of do that. And that being said, I'll go ahead and parlay a little bit here, just slightly. And this is a little more specifically for Brian. And the question came in for me too: is Garrick, as past president, looking back, are you glad that you put yourself out there to be on the board? The answer is yes. And Brian, I'll throw to you just a minute because you've been involved. You're working with Carol on the processing committee. You've been working on some committee work here in the last couple of years too. So those opportunities to step into some leadership roles and take a little more involved, approach with ACDA, get your insight on it. Yes, absolutely. It's been a wonderful thing to put myself out there. I've enjoyed it. I have, you know, made so many more friends and contacts and folks that when I come to conference, I'd say the negative of it is at this point, when I come to conference, I feel like there's a lot more socializing that I do as opposed to, you know, sit down and get a pencil and paper out and learn stuff. So Brian, you want to throw to any of that response too, as far as, you know, getting additional involvement in? And
yeah, definitely. Actually, it was at last year's conference, at last year's national conference for ACDA. I was asked to be one of the co-chairs for the processing committee for ACDA. And so I've spent the last year and will also be continuing in that role for the next year. And that has been a really, really not only valuable experience, but also I think a very productive one on behalf of the programs. So we had a lot of meetings. We actually, in February, had an in-person meeting of the processing committee that had 40, maybe 50 different folks from across industry and states and recipient agencies. And because we held this in person in Washington, D.C., we also had USDA have a very large presence there. It yielded a lot of really productive conversations about modernizing the processing program in particular. And ultimately, in early April, we were able to, as an organization, ACDA was actually able to present some recommendations and feedback on modernization of the processing program to USDA themselves. So that was a really valuable opportunity on behalf of all the stakeholders throughout the organization and across the entire school food supply chain to be able to facilitate those conversations. It's something that I'm very glad that I took that opportunity to be a part of that committee.
Absolutely, and that does parlay. Randy, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Have you had any opportunities to participate on any committees or anything like that with ACDA yet?
Not with ACDA, with USDA on a couple of things.
Sure.
Yeah, not with ACDA yet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, hey.
Oh, I just want to throw out. Well, Brian's doing a lot of stuff even regionally, so this is not. I mean, that's awesome to hear. So.
Yeah, it's Brian's stepping in and knocking it out of the park over here. So, or over there, I guess.
You know, Randy
we got our little
point about that though, is that we've taken a lot of kind of the collaboration and the way that it happens through ACDA and tried to also make that happen. Obviously prompted by the pandemic and how everything had to start becoming virtual, but we started to try to incorporate that in the Midwest region as a way for us to continue collaborating throughout the year. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. Again, I don't mean to keep getting off track. Actually, we talked about some topics here, but the questions are kind of leading us in this direction. We'll come right back to where I was looking at. But we also had a question of what some of the committees that the folks can get involved in. And will they be able to learn more about that at conference? And the answer, as far as the committees, there's several different committees you can be involved in with ACDA, and education processing, as Brian's mentioned. I started besides just being a member and attendee, processing on the form subcommittee is where I started. That's where I put my toe in the water for things. The membership committee, conference planning committee. We've got a plethora of committees and work that can be done as far as, and also work groups and things that we do put out. The board puts together, the president puts together for forwarding the association's work. So definitely there are opportunities, and those opportunities are things that you can look into when you're at conference and see, hey, here's an opportunity for these. Here are these committee chairs. Here's an opportunity for me to talk to them in the hallway or on the side and learn more, see what I'm interested in, or let them know, or let board members know I'm interested. Listen, I can tell you right now, being past president, we are always looking for really anybody that wants to come in and volunteer their time and efforts as part of ACDA and participate. We really encourage it, and we want folks to get that extra bit. As the cliche goes, that you get, X amount out that you put in. But it is very true if you want to get a little more out of ACDA, participating in some committee work is definitely a good way to do it. So thank you, gentlemen, for your patience while we parlayed into the land of questions, and we'll do those through the session here. But going back to what we were talking about, back to conference itself, are you two scheduled to attend any of the pre-conference sessions by chance this year on Sunday?
Well, not so much attend, but I will be part of the presenters for USDA Foods 101 on Sunday morning.
Oh, nice.
So if anybody is going to be in that pre-conference, I'll see you there.
Great. Me and Chris Fatcha, we put that together. A couple of years ago. We were doing it for Seattle, which didn't happen for COVID. But that's a great That's a great pre-con. If anybody's, Randy, any plans for a pre-conference?
I don't have any, but I do. Yeah. I have new members to our team here in Wisconsin for USDA Foods and Procurement. This is their first ACDA conference, and they will be attending the Sunday pre-con. Absolutely.
Yeah, same for me. We've got a brand new attendee in Kentucky that'll be there, and she's going to be at 101 as well. So awesome. There are pre-conference sessions if you want to check that out in your ACDA information on annual conference. It's on the website. You've got some emails probably through time, those of you watching, that if you want to check into that, see what there's some pre-conference sessions that you may want to attend. Did either of you guys suggest the first timers conference? Anybody in your state? And Randy, I'll go ahead and throw it to you because I think you already alluded to that, and that part that it's a nice segue into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Many years ago when I first started going to the ACDA conferences, I attended that. It really helped. And so I recommended it to the team, and I think they're going to be there for it. So
Wonderful.
Yeah, same here. We have one first timer going with our team. And well, depending on travel timing, he may or may not be able to attend the first session on Sunday. But if he can, then it's an awesome opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. I agree 100%. And same here. You know, we've got a couple of first timer RAs attending, so I'll definitely make sure that they're turned on to that potential going to that. Any particular, Brian, we'll start with you on this one. Any particular sessions or one or a couple or a few sessions that you're particularly interested in attending?
So I could probably just jump on the app and tell you a few, the app for the conference, because I've already actually gone in and selected a whole bunch, like almost every session block. My team has gone ahead and picked out what we thought was interesting. So there has to be at least a dozen that I thought were really interesting. The one session, though, that I will say I'm always very interested, and I've actually told AMS about this in the past. AMS during the USDA updates typically will talk about crop yields, forecasting, what is going on the AMS side of things in terms of the crops, in terms of just what they're looking at, updates from their end. And that is kind of, I think, an underrated element to the USDA school food supply chain. I always find that to be one of the most interesting and useful sessions. It's only a portion usually of the USDA session when AMS gets up there, but I always look forward to that because I just take so many notes, write everything down. It's always really, really valuable, and it helps us think through what we may want to advise our schools about in the upcoming 12 to 18 months.
Randy?
Yeah, there's obviously the regional breakout. That's very valuable. I think the face-to-face time. There are a couple, I can't think of the offhand the names right now, but talking about some of the supply chain and how processors are working with that and distribution. And there is another one that I'm definitely looking forward to. It's talking about warehousing cost and distribution. So like in Wisconsin, we contract out for warehousing and distribution. And I imagine I'm looking forward to that one because I'm thinking it'll be very valuable, some information that not only just from the presentation itself, but other folks in that room and how we all kind of operate in each of our states, kind of, share ideas and hopefully, some ideas on how to control costs because they're, I won't say out of control, but, inflation is a big topic.
Right. Absolutely is. Yeah.
I'll also throw in there,
Mhm.
because it's not necessarily a specific session, but if you look through who the presenters are, so this is why the app is going to be valuable. If you go in the app and you just look at the agenda and you look through who the presenters are, obviously it's always really good to go to anything that USDA is presenting because you're going right to the source, you're hearing from them. Another one that I always want to kind of plug is if there's distributors that are presenting, because a lot of times they are the connective tissue between all the different parts of the supply chain, and being able to hear from distributors is, again, one of the pieces that you kind of only get at ACDA. And so you can look for that. You can look for that in the app. You can look for that on the agenda. And that if you're trying to pick between different ones, that's a good way. If you got to flip the coin that way, because a lot of times those are going to be the folks that might be a little bit more connected, more in the know about what's going on in a widespread way, in a very broad way across the country.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic insight, and that gives us an opportunity to mention the app that we're using, or that ACT is using to put the schedule and conference information out for those attendees, is the Whova app, WHOVA. if you're looking for it on the various app platforms. And you can find all that information, what sessions are happening, what time, and where the location is, who the speakers are, the information. There'll be a little brief information about each speaker for the session. I do believe they're going to probably include the PowerPoints that those speakers have prepared for those sessions in the app too. So a lot of valuable information in the Whova app. And right now, actually, just before we came online, we got a little insight from Shannon that about 50% of our attendees have already downloaded and registered via the Whova app for conference. This is obviously beyond just the regular conference registration and stuff, but they've downloaded it and signed up and found the conference. Definitely encourage you to do that and check it out, because honestly I haven't done it yet. I'm going to. I will do that by the time the first session goes along. I will have that thing down and in my phone and ready to rock and roll. But yeah, if you need to check ahead of time, you can definitely do that. You can also look up. There is I believe there's a schedule on the website, on ACDA's website, that you can look up. And if you don't have the Whova app yet, but both of those methods, if you want to kind of get an eyeball on what the sessions are. So we get back to these. I want to make sure we're covering the questions. And one other comment about the agenda. I apologize, I lost the screen there. One other component about the agenda is you'll notice there are several sessions going on at one time. So, depending on what the topics are, they're pretty good odds you're going to have a session that you're going to feel like something's going to be very valuable to you and your perspective in your state or your stakeholder area. Hopefully, and it's not just laid out for states. Everything's not just catered to 100% to states. So, don't think you're going to, as a school district or as a warehouse or anything like that, or distributor rather, that you're going to have to, sit through a bunch of stuff about that states want to hear and nobody else. So there's several sessions and options to choose from. Moving down kind of through our conversation here. I wanted to also mention that we got a welcome reception on Monday evening at 6 p.m. and Tuesday night. Also, there's another reception, the President's reception at 5:30, going to downtown Disney. So keep an eye on that, on those schedules to see that you've got your time there. I wanted to take a second and Brian, you'd referenced the AMS section of the USDA presentation and the USDA's presentation overall. That's something valuable. Are you very familiar with attending Roger Shamraw's policy update sessions that he does? And if so, you guys, I forgot who we've rotated on. So one of you gentlemen want to jump in first and tackle. If you want to just provide any insight on how you're feeling about Roger's policy updates in those sessions in the past.
You can go first, Randy.
Okay, I very valuable. Good. First off, good speaker. So it's not a snoozer. It's not one of those things you're gonna. You'll end up paying a lot of attention, and you kind of referenced something earlier that people are coming to these things from different perspectives. That's one of those that I think, regardless if you're a distributor or a school or a state agency, you're probably going to pick up something in there that you're going to go, okay, I'm glad I attended for that piece of information, because it kind of lets you know where things are going and gives you kind of not a behind the scenes, but kind of a national look at how USDA is perceiving those and thinking about them.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Randy said. And Roger is full of information. He's really, really knowledgeable. And yes, there's the DC speak. I think we all know what that kind of sounds like, speaking in regulations and laws and legislation. And he does a good job of translating it for us, boots on the ground that are trying to figure out a way, if we're in a state position, how to interpret what's going on for local districts. If you're in a local district, how to interpret that for your actual operations. If you're in industry, how to interpret that for how you're going to be interacting in the future with states, with recipient agencies, with USDA. I think we also saw an increase in how valuable that kind of information can be when we were faced with 110 plus waivers in the National School Lunch Program, Summer Food Service Program, CACFP, all those programs, household programs, TFAP, lots and lots of waivers were implemented. And we had to learn a lot about what USDA has authority to issue a waiver for and what they have to get congressional authority for. And once you say you have to get congressional authority, then knowing what's going on in the things like committees, that's the information that Roger provides to us so that we know what might be coming up, what looks likely to happen. Just getting that information, consolidating that in a user-friendly way gives us a little bit of insight on what might be coming up, not just when some waiver expires, but what happens after that too.
Yep. Yeah, Roger's just an absolute fountain of knowledge and information, and somewhat of a celebrity in ACDA. And let's say if you need to find Roger ahead of conference, I don't know what his travel plans are, but I would be willing to put a little bit of my own money on the horse that says Roger may go visit Disneyland on Saturday prior to the festivities starting, or he may be planning on going after. But he's a big Disney fan. He and I usually chat about eating something at Disney at some point anytime we see one another. So I would say he's definitely excited to not only go to see Disney, but to come to Anaheim and be with us at ACDA. Any ideas what you guys think we may or may not hear from Roger this year? Any things that you are looking forward to hearing specifically besides the kind of the standard fare of what's going on in DC?
I feel like if I had a crystal ball into that, I would have already shared it with as many people as possible. I think it's always very difficult when you're not really well connected to what's happening in DC to know what to expect. So a lot of times it's just becoming enlightened about what is happening.
Yep. Randy, you got any guess? You want to take any guess what might be on the?
Yeah, again, not sure. Just with all the happenings around buying local and how USDA, not AMS, but USDA. Well, yeah, I think it's AMS. So they have their own different programs going, and I'm wondering if what might come up. Is there going to be any crossovers for that? And because it seems to be a really big topic, especially with supply chain crunches and inflation. I'm wondering is there any initiatives for that down the road? So
yeah, we're not. I don't think we're in we're not in a election cycle year per se. So we're not staring down the barrel of anything in November election wise. So I think hopefully there may be a little bit of the calm before the storm for this year's update with Roger, but I'm sure there's still plenty going on, and he works over there, and I don't know if anybody's ever had an opportunity or seen Roger in action, but being on the board, going on Hill visits after our winter board meeting in DC every year is a part of those activities when we have that, and seeing Roger in action is pretty impressive too. So it's nice to know we've got a nice solid person on our side that can go work with folks on the Hill and work with things on the legislative side. So the point of this, if y'all watch and haven't figured out, is Roger's policy updates are quite informative and popular. So definitely want to encourage everybody to try to carve out as much time as they can to attend those if they can. I think he's repeating. I'm not 100% sure. You have to check the Hoover app to see if he's going to be doing any repeat sessions. But I think they do try to build them in because they're sold out. Sold out standing room only sessions a lot of times. So that being said, gentlemen, we talk about Roger, which brings me to the thought of voting. And this year we'll be voting for several active board positions. While that's going on, I wanted to let everybody know that you can check those out on the ACDA website, and see what's going on and what those candidates are and what those positions are. And actually, I think we have a bylaw vote coming too as well this year. We did some updates to the bylaws of the board. So, just some things that you may want to take a few moments ahead of the conference, get your eyeballs on and get your brain wrapped around. I don't think we're doing anything earth shattering or anything like that. But you may want to get an eye on it before you cast your vote as a state. So, gentlemen, this kind of brings me to the end of the list of topics that I really wanted to cover, and I appreciate your time. Is there any parting wisdom or information that you'd like to provide to those who are watching about ACDA conference attending as a state agency? Anything like that you all want to throw out there to the what is it they always say? That I had a college professor who used to say, inquiring minds want to know.
I guess I'll share a couple. They're very simple. Talk to as many people as you can. Go to as many sessions as your time permits. Just try to engage in conversations. Ask questions. Everybody says there's no stupid question. That's very true about this conference. If you have a question during a session, chances are 5 or 6 other people have the same question. So ask those questions. And then the second one, it's a very practical piece of advice. Bring lots of business cards, because it's really good for just, if people are going to want to know your contact information, bring lots of business cards.
Yep.
Randy?
Let's see here. If you've never been to an ACDA conference, it's not as, I don't want to say it's not serious. People go there, we learn a lot. It's very professional, but I notice that people have a good time, and you're going to learn real quick that these are just normal people out, just kind of like, you'll find people just like yourself there. If you're new to ACDA, you're going to be able to kind of maybe meet some of those folks and kind of connect and have a good time. It seems like people are there to have a good time, and everybody brings their list of things that they were probably going to make sure they ask either their USDA person or some other processor or distributor, but I just notice people have a good time there. You hear lots of people laughing. So, that's just what I got to throw out there. Those type of things.
It is quite fun, and I enjoy getting to go every year. So I can absolutely back and verify that. So again, thank you guys so much for your time today. I appreciate it. You all watching at home or in the office, wherever you're at, thank you for tuning in and taking the time this afternoon to listen to us chat about conference. We hope that if you are planning to be there, we hope to see you there. And I can't reiterate enough what Brian said. Don't hesitate to reach out, talk to somebody. And I know, sometimes folks have name tags, and we have those little ribbons that go on the bottom. And I would encourage you as an attendee to find somebody with as many ribbons as you can possibly see on their name tag and talk to them. Because I feel like sometimes all the long ribbon tails can sort of become an indicator of somebody that you may feel intimidated to talk to, but in actuality would definitely indicate somebody that you should feel even more comfortable talking to, because they've definitely been around and talked and probably know a lot of information that you may want to find out. So definitely reach out to anybody. Like I said, everybody's out there to have a good time. Randy's absolutely right. Everybody wants to learn. We want to have a good time. We want to enjoy ourselves. We're getting out of the office, getting away from the house for a few days, but also want to do some work and better our programs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Having 800, 900 people with the same goals in mind. Everybody's ready to chat and enjoy ourselves. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I want to thank you for the work that you do, for the work that you do for your respective states, the work that you do for ACDA, the work that you do for all of our team members, all the stakeholders involved in this process. As your counterpart, anytime anything I can do to help out, absolutely don't hesitate to reach out, call, email. I know there's probably some folks from the western part of the country going, oh, they got their little Midwest Santa Fe ring going over here. But but anybody out there with a state agency, don't hesitate to reach out to myself. I feel pretty confident saying if Randy or Brian, you feel like they can help you out, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to chat with you. That's what we do. The states, we all work together. We all figure out what each other's doing and see what we can utilize of each other's that will help us make our programs better. As we wrap up on our next ACDA in the hot seat, it's scheduled to take place on May 2nd. Myself, Robin Bowman, Carol Erb, and Ken Simcox will gather to compare notes on what we've learned in Anaheim after the conference. If you have any comments and suggestions for future events or ACDA hot seat topics, feel free to send those to info@commodityfoods.org. We can get that information and take that in consideration as we plan moving forward. One final question that was posed, Carol wanted to know if Garrick's going to be singing for us all at the conference. The answer is that yes, Jose and Lena have decided that I'm not going to get off the hook, that I'll have to sing the national anthem at opening session. So technically, yes, Carol, I will be singing for everyone at the conference. But it won't be any George Jones or Waylon Jennings songs. It'll be, Francis Scott Key, and we'll keep it straight down the middle for that. But so thank you again, everyone, for your time, and enjoy the rest of your week. And those of you attending ACDA in Anaheim at our annual conference, look forward to seeing you there. Safe travels, and we'll talk to you soon.